All right, Project Herpetoculture, episode 9 with Philip Tremper. Thank you, Philip, for coming on the show and talking with us. We really, really appreciate it. Real quick, before we get started, I got to mention our sponsor, Custom Reptile Habitats, right, Roy?
Hmm.
And it's the click-through link. That's the thing we have to mention, right? If you use
Hmm.
our Amazon click-through link with Custom Reptile Habitats and you get something from, or did I say Amazon click-through link? Oh man,
You did, but
my
I mean,
mistake.
it's like, there it's deeply ingrained in there.
It's kind of embedded in there. Sorry. Or click through link with through Custom Reptile Habitats. Buy something from them. We get a tiny kickback. They rock. Way to go. So before we hit record, we were talking about Philip's extensive herpetoculture publication library and weight and bringing books home on carry-on, having weight limits for your luggage on the plane, and kind of having that as a bit of a problem. When I once I was coming back from California and I filled up a bunch of cloth bags with the decomposed granite and sand, like a solid 75 pounds of the sand. I brought it back in my suitcase because I wanted to use it in my enclosures for both my chuckwallas and my Crotophytus fastigium, the Baja collared lizards. And when I brought it through security, they had to like check it out and I don't remember what it was, but there was something about it being potentially hazardous. When you see like a big bag of
Hmm.
stuff, that's like a big red flag for them. So yeah, I too have toyed with the the limits of weight you can put in your carry on. Oh man.
Just a slightly different way, but
Yeah, a little bit different way. It was not anywhere near as interesting as bringing really sweet books home from Germany, which I wish one day I'll probably have an opportunity to do that, but I have yet. So you've been to the Ham show, right, Philip?
Yeah, I've been there. We've been over there three times. The first year was 2011,
Mhm.
and then we went back in 2013, and we spent a considerable amount of time in Germany. We went down to Austria and France, and shot over into the Netherlands as well too. But I actually got a chance to do a little bit of herping over there
Oh,
in 2013 when we that day when we flew over, we met some of our friends over there, and right away, it was probably like about 6, 7 o'clock at night their time, and they're about 7 hours ahead of us, like in Central Standard Time here.
mhm.
Um, yeah, we had probably about a 13, 14 hour trip. It was
wow.
kind of crazy. There was a lot of delays and all that. But right after dinner, and I'll let the guys. It was in the fall, and it was raining real lightly. You want to go salamander hunting? Sure. And
Yeah.
so we went and found fire salamanders at
Oh,
night.
nice.
When you're shining a flashlight in the woods and all that, you don't see anything. But as soon as your light hits the yellow markings, it just blows up. I mean, it's just
Wow.
incredible. But then about midway in our trip and all that, we went down to Austria, and we went down to a battlement. It was called Ehrenberg, and there was like three different sections. One of the goals that I had was to see like different castles and the ruins and all that, and just to check them out. And
Hmm.
if you ever get over there, Berg Eltz is like the best to go to. It's just
Hmm.
absolutely incredible. But
Mm.
Ehrenberg and all that, we hiked up probably about it was probably about between almost 4,000 foot elevation, something like that. It was quite a bit,
Oh wow.
and there it was quite the experience. There was a senior group that hiked all the way up there, and these people are like absolutely fit, and
Yeah.
they had a little lunch, and they'd socialize with each other. It was great, but yeah, I had always heard that there was like a couple different species of lacertids up there. And so that's what I wanted to focus on. And my wife, she's just, while we're up here, let's just enjoy the scenery. And,
Yeah.
but I, um, I actually found both of them. I was
Nice.
just going along, and all of a sudden, saw a rock, and there was a little lacerta, right there. And then that was like at one battlement, and then we hiked to another one, and we actually had to go on this rust. We had two options. We could have either gone the easy route, which is basically for tourists, or we could have gone the rustic route, which is this trail that's only maybe about 20 inches wide, and it's right on the edge of the mountain. And
Oh,
so yeah, so yeah, it was intimidating to look, straight down. And if you slipped and all that, that's it, game over.
yeah.
We decided to do that, and we're going down and up, and then finally we started going up in elevation. And here's this, way off in the distance, I see this older couple. Literally, they're probably in their late 70s, and it was, this I don't know, this older couple, they were just like fit as all get out. I mean, they're Guten Tag, and I mean, just as friendly as all get out. But I mean, they were like, you could tell that they hiked all the time. They were like rock solid. And I mean, just like the healthiest people. But once we reached that battlement, that's when I started poking around more, and I found more Lacertids. But after I came back, I met up with some of my friends and all. I told them what I found. They're like, "Are you kidding? You actually started looking for Lacertids?" I'm like, "Yeah." They said, "Well, did you see any vipers up there?" I said, "No." They said, "Yeah, there's a species of viper up there that if you would have gotten bit, you wouldn't have made it off of the mountain." I'm like, "Oh, that's good to know." So yeah, don't stick your hand where it doesn't belong, under a stone or a stump or something like that. But it was an experience. But yeah, we went there. We did that in 13, and then in December, we decided to go over there. Airfare was like really cheap and all that, and that was yeah, it was basically like 2 for 1. So we decided to fly into Amsterdam on that trip, and we stayed for a day, like with one of the breeders over there. Him and his wife got a chance to see his collection, and we actually got a chance to see the Artist Zoo, which is like one of the oldest zoos like in Europe.
Oh,
And although they had a lot of exhibits closed because it was winter, we still got a chance to go into the reptile house and and see everything else. Their aquatics was just unbelievable. Probably the highlight of that trip and all that, they had salmon babies, the little tent tortoises from Africa. They had, or they're called padlopers, and they had 2 of them in together. And way back in the late 1980s, early 90s, I had a chance to grab those guys, and I wish I would have, but that's it's the way it rolls. But we ended up being at the Ham Show. We ended our trip there,
yeah.
and that's pretty much what we do. What we've done all the time is just end our trip with that show, and it's crazy. If you from what I understand, they're just starting to get back into it. They're starting to meet now, and it's an experience that if you think that you've been to one show, a larger show here in the United States, you haven't experienced anything until you've gone over there. And you'll see species that you will never see here in the United States. I guarantee you that. And you'll get a chance to talk to the people who basically started herpetoculture. I mean, that's the way I've always revered the Europeans very highly, because they've initiated basically, this hobby. I'm not knocking anybody here in the United States and all that, but when you go over there and you see how their setups are, they basically, were some of the first ones that started, these various habitats, putting these different environments together, in an enclosed cage and all that, and just not having one species, but maybe multiple species. And but their cages and all that, different designs and how they, fit them into their living quarters and all that it's unbelievable.
Yeah, the Europeans, it's a pretty regular. I feel like out of all of our shows, we've talked about the differences between keeping here in the United States and the level of keeping in Europe and in other parts of the world, but specifically in Europe. And it's been a recurring theme to ruminate on why it, is. I know obviously there are the differences that are at the result of the fact that they've been doing it for longer in Europe than we've been doing it here in the United States. So there's that big primary obvious difference. But I think it was in our last recording with Ashley, right? Where she was talking about how or where we were also talking about how, like, culturally it's a little different in Europe, like the way people look at something like the practice of herpetoculture is different than the way the average person tends to look at it here.
No, I completely agree with that. Even I've had a chance to go into the back scenes of like one or two zoos over there too. It's completely different than over here in the United States. For one, and all that, which is kind of cool and all that. Some of the zoos over there, if you really get to know the keepers and all that, you can actually buy the offspring. Yeah, and I mean it's they'll offer it to you, but some of them they're because of import export laws and all that it's not happening. But yeah, the way they view their keeping and all that it is different than here. I would say it's more like a really really high standard.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there's no high standards here. It's not like that, but they kind of take it to a different level, and I just every time that I talk to somebody over in Europe and every time that I've been over there, I'm telling you, I mean, my mind is just like a sponge and it just absorbs everything. I don't even want to talk. All I want to do is just listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see how can I apply what they're doing to my collection as well too, or to what I've been doing.
So do you think so? I think in the average person, or myself included, for a very long time, when I thought about the differences between the kind of keeping that I would see here in the United States and some of the keeping that I'd see photographs. I mean, I've never. I mean, I've lived in Europe for a little while, but I didn't. I didn't do a lot of herping over there. I didn't talk with a lot of herpers when I lived there. But what I was going to say is just that there's something about it's not just the materials, right? It's not just the lighting is different, and it's not just that their substrate choices are different, and it's not just that there's like this. It's not just that the enclosures are larger, and that it's just there's a lot of factors, but it also seems to be the way they think about the practice as a whole, just like the way they're approaching and orienting themselves towards the practice of herpetoculture seems different than the way the average person does it here. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah. It's there's some keepers that they just focus on, let's say, just one particular species, or they just want one animal. And they're happy with it. And it doesn't have to be, let's say a reptile, amphibian. Insects are very, very popular over there. Some of the, especially like your phasmids or your different mantids. They're stuff that I've seen over there. I didn't even know they existed, but they really cater to that animal's needs, like 159%. And it just doesn't go with a cage, but it goes with the diet that they're giving them. The whole 9 yards, the lighting, the heating, the cooling, the misting, all of that. They really, really take it to heart that I'm going to devote, this space, my time to this particular species. And then, of course, there's those that have diverse collections and all that, which is great. And the few people that I've come in contact with and that I've seen their collections, they may have like 20, 25 different species and all that, but everything is very meticulously devoted. But one of the things that's popular over there too, if they have let's say outdoor living area, is a greenhouse.
Yeah.
Mm.
One of my friends over there, he just completed his greenhouse. I think it was like last year. So now he has his greenhouse with all the succulents and different plants and such like that. But he has and the sides and all that that border the greenhouse. Um, it's all glass. I mean, it is pretty
Mm.
sweet. But
Wow.
he has two little ponds, and he just sent me a video about 2 weeks ago. He's got Lacerta trilineata, and he just they come from his area. He lives down near the Black Forest, and he said,
Oh,
yeah, since they live not too far away and all that, he decided, well, I'll just throw a couple of them in, by one of the little ponds,
yeah.
and he's sent me a video of he just sits out there drinking like his little cappuccino or something, but
Mhm.
he's got these tongs and he's just hand feeding them super worms or something like that.
Yeah.
They're just it's great. But he's got like MS subrocularis, the European pond turtles in one, and animals that could live in year round outside. It's very popular. It doesn't necessarily mean that that particular species comes from Germany, because in one of his pens and all that, he's got like some different tortoises as well too, and he doesn't bring them in. He just lets them hibernate outside. So, when you get into the southern part of Germany, yeah, they do get winter, but it's not like, let's say winter in Wisconsin. Uh,
Mhm.
there's nothing, almost nothing comparable to that, except,
Yeah.
except for the North Pole.
Yeah.
But that's really popular over there, having these outdoor pens, and some of them are they're just spectacular, and
Yeah.
you just have to be not in a disrespectful way and all that, but you got to be envious of it.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah.
just, I mean, the thought process that has gone into it, and it's not cheap either. But the end product is just amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's more of a labor of love. It sounds like, just the way that it's oriented to, it's just there's a lot of passion that drives it that people will go to greater lengths, it seems like, to provide in that mindset.
Hmm. Yeah. And it seems a little bit less like commercialized. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, obviously there's still the same kind of market. I mean, obviously the market's going to be a little bit different too, but I guess I just mean to say it seems um like people don't tend to, or at least from my perception, I could be completely wrong about this, but it seems like fewer Europeans make it their business, right?
Mhm.
It seems it's just it remains this thing that you do on the side. It's bit, like there's this it's at least it's rarer for me to encounter Europeans who reach out to me for any reason, or if maybe I'm friends with them or I reached out to them, but it's fewer of them. Some of them surely do. It's their business and it's what they do. But some of them, it just seems like it's this interesting side thing that they do. And they have maybe their day job. They work at some, who knows, some medical office or something. And then they come home and they have all this beautiful devotion to this weird craft. I mean, it's pretty admirable. And so this is an excellent and interesting topic. And just for the record, Philip, I would have said this sort of before the show, but I just want to say that there's no this. I'm sure when you listened to the show with Ron that we did, you noticed that there's not really like we're not trying to like have a direct narrative. We really just want to have a conversation about all of this. Even though we do have some idea of some stuff we want to talk with you about, from my perspective, what makes these conversations fun and interesting is when they're just like the conversations we'd have on the phone, shooting the shit about reptiles, right? But I really do want to make sure I ask you, before we go too much further, can you tell us who may not know that much about you, kind of where you fit into herpetoculture and like how you started? So like what were some of your like gateway events into herpetoculture? Has it something that's been with you forever?
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
I could say that. Well, I mean, I've always been interested in, you know, the odd animals, for as long as I can remember. But I would say it really, officially started like in 1985. So this is like 37 years, I've been in this. But yeah, I think a lot of us when we were kids, we're always interested in something different. And I like to think of those individuals as the normal people, the ones that are living outside the bubble, and the rest of them are inside the bubble.
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to sound pompous like that, but I just feel that we're a unique, breed.
Yeah.
And because I feel that we're more aware of our surroundings, we're more aware of our, of life, and we want to understand it. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in reptiles, amphibians, especially lizards. That's always uh, caught my interest. And I would say that there's, one of the people that really influenced me was when I was a little kid was my grandfather. He's been passed away for many years, but I was a little kid, and him and I, Sunday afternoons, Godzilla movies. So
Yeah.
has an influence on you. But yeah, yeah, it's of course sci-fi always kind of plays a little bit into it. But yeah, I would say teenager. Of course, almost all of us will have an iguana. That's crazy. It wants to bite us, scratch us, smack us with its tail, and all that.
Yeah.
But I really started looking into other different species. And where I lived, there was a pet shop. It was called the Bamboo Pet Shop, and there was this tall, skinny lady in there with big, giant hair. This was back in like the late 70s or whatever, and she. Her name was Robin, what I remember, but they always had a pretty decent reptile section. And I just remember I was always mesmerized by the Jackson chameleons, and and some of the other crazy stuff. But what really kind of catapulted was that later on, and I dealt with all the odd freshwater fish, and I dipped my hand into saltwater, but that went south real quick. After a bacteria boom and everything dying in one night, I said, "That's it. I'm done. I'm done, done, done." I still remember I had my prize fish was a blue-face angel, and I just loved that thing. And I worked my butt off to earn the money for that thing because they were expensive back then. And when I came home and I found that thing floating on the bottom, I just threw the towel in. But like in the suburbs of Chicago, there's a town called Schaumburg, and there was a main pet shop that was called Noah's Ark, and they had a couple satellite stores as well too, but their main one was in Schaumburg, and their reptile section was it was like a mini zoo. I remember they actually had baby shingleback skinks there. This is when they could be brought in legally.
Oh,
They were $275 a piece. I will never forget that. And they had all sorts of African, lizards. They would, fresh imports that they'd bring in.
yeah.
But the really interesting thing, and it was the first time that I was introduced, they had naturalistic vivariums that they set everything up in.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that's what like really kind of stuck with me, that we don't want to keep these animals in like a like a just a plain cage or anything like that with a plastic plant or something. It's you gotta take it a step further. But and of course I spent untold amounts of money there, which is just what we do.
Yeah.
But they as a side note, and I'll let that pet shop, they back then, that's when they had a really nice dog and cat section, and that's when I was introduced to Sharpays too. And I told myself one day I'm going to get myself a Sharpei, and sure enough, 7 years ago I got myself a blue Sharpei.
All right.
My wife's dog and all that, but he's something else. And anybody that has owned a Shar Pei, they know what I'm talking about. So, but they're great dogs. And I once a Shar Pei owner, you're always a Shar Pei owner. But like in '85 and all that, that was it was maybe a little bit before that. And before that, I had kept different lizards and such like that. And whenever I'd go fishing, I'm always finding turtles, and we always probably done this. We've have seen a freshly crushed turtle, and we find the eggs, and we bring them home. We hatch them out, set them up, hatch them out, and then we let the babies go. I mean, that's like innate. It's in us to do stuff like that. But I had an uncle back then, and I kind of got out of reptiles for a little bit, and just to start my life up a little bit. And my uncle and all that, he was a musician, and he had a friend, because I really didn't know what direction I wanted to go into with reptiles. But my uncle, he called me. He gave me a call. He said, "Yeah, you need to come over one day. I want to, introduce you to this guy and all that. He knows all about lizards and especially geckos." I thought, well, okay, I don't have nothing to lose. Well, him and my uncle and all that, this guy and all that, they, of course, musicians, they were doing drugs together, a lot of pot and everything. And it's like, whatever, that's your decision in life. But the guy's name was Al Bazar. So, and apparently, from what I understand, he's somewhere around still, but I got to know him, and he introduced me to Felsumas, the day geckos, and he had a lead on bringing Felsumas over from Europe, like that year, like in '85, '86. And I just jumped right into those things. I probably had, maybe 14, 15 different species, and trying to breed all of them. One of my favorite ones were the abaddii, because they come from the Seychelles Islands, and they live on the Aldabra's backs and all that, the Aldabra tortoises and all that, picking flies and everything else off. But they're really fun geckos. But I just always felt that I needed to take it, a step further. And it wasn't, necessarily the monetary gain from it. That's not, what it was really about. It was like just working with more and different species and that. And I'll never forget one day I was with my brother, a couple of really good friends, and guys and gals. We were up in Hyde Park in Chicago, and we were at a restaurant. And I explained to him exactly what I wanted to do, especially like breeding bearded dragons back then, because they were just really starting on the scene. You didn't see the different morphs and all that yet, or the different color variations and all that. They didn't really exist. There was a such thing as a normal bearded dragon back then. But the interesting thing was that I did the calculations and all that, okay, if I have X amount of animals, how much space do I need? How much food do I need? What's it going to cost? The whole 9 yards. I remember explaining it to them, and every one of those people criticized me for that. Every stinking one of them. They're like, "You're an idiot. You're stupid and all that. You're just foolish for thinking, going down that. You need to get a regular job, and you need, just be focused on that." Which is fine. I get that, but this was kind of like, a little bit of a dream and all that. And I even got criticized even by my parents about it too. And I unfortunately, because the one thing that I've just experienced, and maybe you guys have experienced too, that when you kind of think outside the box and all that, there comes prejudice or criticism or discrimination. And that just comes with it, because you're different than the other person and all that. It's not that you got bat wings and a forked tail or anything like that. It's just that you're thinking up here, because you kind of see the big picture of things. And I just, yeah, it was kind of a discouragement for a while and that, but I didn't give up. And then probably about, well, it was about that year too. That's when I joined the Chicago Herpetological Society. And I've been a member ever since. It was since 1985. And you know, of course, that mainly appealed to the academic world, which is great. And but there was always articles in there that dealt a little bit with captive husbandry, but they had a wide plethora of different topics and all that they would cover, and of course book reviews and stuff like that. But back then, there was a really wide. They had an advertisement section in the back of their bulletin, and their bulletin came out once a month, and it still does. And they're on Zoom as well too. If you've never seen it, or I highly recommend it. But they've got some really good speakers. One of them, it was about a year ago. They had this researcher, this gal, and all that. Working with tuatars down in New Zealand, and I listened to that, and that talk just blew my mind away.
Cool.
I learned a lot from that talk. So I can just say this, that the tuatars, unless that part of the world explodes and all that, they're not going anywhere. They're going to survive, because we think that they're just on one little island. They're not, or one little section and all that. They're not. They're in areas. They're in areas now that they did exist like many centuries ago. So now reintroduced, and they're actually thriving. So,
nice.
Wow.
Yeah, and which is great. And I've something, it reminds me of another species that on the island of Rodriguez, Reunion. Well, one of those, and I'll let Phelsuma guntheri, which is like the largest Phelsuma right now. They only existed on one little island off the mainland, and now they've been introduced like to these little satellite islands, and now they're thriving, and even like different. So I mean, there's some really good ecologists, conservationists working with stuff like that. But just getting back with the Chicago Herps bulletin, they had like a big advertisement section, and back then there was no internet, there was nothing like that. People. The way they communicated was either they called each other, or they wrote letters, or they showed up at one of these meetings. And for me, it was kind of twofold and all that. About that time and all that, the IHS, the International Herpetological Symposium, they were in Chicago that year. And I got a chance to meet Sean McEwen and Ray Pauley at the Brookfield Zoo. And Sean was a big Phelsuma breeder. He had been to Madagascar, to Seychelles, all these different islands that the geckos existed. And so he kind of had a little bit of influence on me. But the IHS and all that, I went to their meeting, and it was kind of like in the pre-days of your reptile expos, where you would have these talks, and you would have so many people that show up, but then there was this little bit of amount of individuals and all that were breeding, let's say colubrids especially, and they bring them to the show and sell them. They would set like a table or two up, and they would have maybe a dozen snakes or whatever. So I had it in my crazy mind that even though I never had a colubrid at that time, that I'm coming home with a scarlet king snake or something, and of course it didn't happen, because right away there was a book vendor there, and my eyes just went right to it. And that was the Atlas of Reptiles and Amphibians by TFH. And that book is about 25 pounds. And I mean, it's like that thick. And I'll never forget, I came home with an empty pocket, but a giant book. And that book, I tell you what, I just absorbed that thing. And I just, even though all those genuses and all that, they have almost most of them been revised and everything, but just digging into that thing and just learning about just not geckos or lizards, but all amphibians and reptiles, that were at least known, back in the mid 80s and all that. And, once again, I think I paid about $125 for that book. And, I got criticized for, buying a book, and I don't regret, picking that thing up. But, with the IHS and all that, that's how you make contacts with other breeders, people that were interested in, things that you're possibly interested in. Most people back then, it was about, different pythons, colubrids and such, different snake species. And, but there is, very, very small, percentage of people that were really interested in different lizard species or tortoises, or even water turtles for that, part. But in amphibians, there was almost, there might have been one person, it was very, very small number. And, from there, in the back of that, with the IHS and with back of the Chicago Herp Bulletin, because they had so many people contributing to the advertisements and all that, there was an advertisement for Notes of Noah, and that was a publication that was published by the Northern Ohio Association of Herpetologists. And that thing just like absolutely took off. And it was paperback. It was probably maybe 25 pages, is all folded up. Had some really good articles from various breeders, mainly from the Midwest and out to the Northeast, like Pennsylvania, Virginia, New York area, and Ohio. It mainly concentrated on a lot of people out that way, because back then it seemed that you really only had maybe 4 areas that where people that were interested in reptiles that were really focusing on starting to breed existed, and that was like the Northeast. Of course, you had Florida, and you had California, and you had like a little bit in Texas. So but that once that society started taking off, their advertisements started taking off because more people were starting to come in, and of course that made more contacts, and that's and that just kind of opens a world up for for an individual like me who was just getting started. And for as far as like the main thing that I was interested in at that time was geckos, and I just absorbed them. I mean, I didn't care what it was, if it was a tokay or if it was very few people knew what Rhacodactylus was, or Teratoscincus, Tychozoon, whatever it was. I mean, there's a lot of cool species, but again, back then all we had was just black and white paper to write stuff on. There's no color photos or anything like that. If you wanted a photo, you had to basically request and very politely ask somebody that hey, I hear you're keeping something, is it possible that you could send me a picture of it? So people got their 35mm cameras out and took a picture, had to go get it developed, so that's a cost under their belt, and then you have to mail it. So whenever you received a letter in the mail, it usually was about half an inch thick, with photos. And I still have a bunch of them. And Philip, I shared some with you, like on Euromastics and all that. It was a lot of fun. Kind of showing you what kind of existed way back then. But but that things really started snowballing like around, I'd say, 1988, because you had the Midwest Herp Symposium, or Herpological Symposium, and I remember it was in St. Louis. But that was like in '87 or something like that, and I met a lot of people down there. And then in 1988, that's when it just really launched. And there a lot more people were, starting to become interested in the reptile keeping and breeding. And back then, more of your academic individuals and all that were working with or communicating with the private sector. It's not like today. Very few academics and all that will even, bat an eyebrow at you, which is unfortunate. I mean, I'm going to be very adamant about that. Very, very fortunate. And it's not disrespectful to any party or anything like that. But, at the end of the day, it's about knowledge. It's not about,
Right.
it's not about retaining information, retaining that, information. But what was kind of interesting about that year, there was more businesses that were starting to pop up that dealt with imports, and and the only way that they're going to sell their imports is through a price list. And so the great reptile price list, sort of started. There was still, there was some stuff in the 70s and like early 80s, but the late 80s and especially the 90s, holy cats, did it just take off. You had guys like Tom Crutchfield, you had Louis Porras of Zoo Herp. One of my favorites was Bill Love and Rob McInnes at Glades Herp.
Yep.
I just saw Rob a couple weeks ago down at the Breeders' Expo, and I literally have known Rob for probably like almost almost 30 years. It's been quite a while, and but probably the biggest one that had a really influence was Ron Tremper. He was out in California, and he owned what was called CRAP. It was the Center for Reptile Amphibian Propagation. And Ron did was that he made these little European trips, and over to the Czech Republic and Russia and different countries in Europe. And he would come back to the States and put all these little cool species on his price list. And Ron never knew. He didn't know me. I didn't know him. And then once I found out about him, and I found out that he was going to be down in Oklahoma at the Midwest Herp Symposium and all that, I booked a flight and went down there. And him and I, we've been friends ever since.
Wow.
Of course, he retired a couple years ago out of the reptile hobby. And he's living in Costa Rica and seeing monkeys and birds and
Poor guy.
So yeah, kudos to you, Ron. So,
Yeah.
but that just opened up another door right there. And of course, I was still interested in a lot of different lizard species, but it was still mainly geckos.
Yeah.
And then that year, when I was down there, I met Dr. Tim Title, and him and I have been friends ever since. He was one of the top radiologists like in the United States, and Tim, he's traveled the world. I mean, Australia, New Zealand, all these other different countries and all that, collecting, photographing, just visiting. And I mean, the guy's got a lot of knowledge under his belt, but him and I just kind of hit it off. And, of course, him and I, we both had common interest, which is basically geckos. And, that really took off. But the thing that I moved up to Wisconsin like in '92, and then I got out of the reptiles for about a year because I was starting a new business off. And once I had that on its feet, the collection that I had prior to coming up, I basically bought like half that back. The other half, people killed them. Which kind of, that was a bad taste in the mouth there. Because some of those species I couldn't get anymore. But that's water under the bridge. But I really started, diversifying and started really looking into, a lot of different, gecko species and, a couple other different lizard species like taliquas, some of the different agamids. And one of the things that took place with like in the 90s was Madagascar. And Madagascar opened up. And oh man, I tell you what, Glades Herp, every month they would put out a price list. And we knew that when that price list was going to land in your mailbox and all that. And there was myself and probably a good other, maybe 8-9 people and all that. We were all fighting over the same species, because you had Ebenavia, you had different Phelsuma, you just had all these Haemophilus, species, and just all the different chameleons that were coming in, and then you had the Zonosaurus, and some of the other ground lizards. You had first time I ever saw them. I think I'm going to pronounce. Hoping I pronounce it right. Lingala, the Madagascar leaf nose snakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, unbelievable. But every month it fed that interest, and that just kept going and going and going. And then Rob McGinnis, he finally caught on, and he was going over to Europe and bringing stuff back too. And about that time, I think it was like probably the mid '90s or maybe mid '90s, late '90s. That's when the Ham show started, like over in Europe. And then in 1990, that's when the Breeders' Expo started. I went to the first one, and for a reptile person, you're just in awe. I mean, it wasn't as large as what it used to be, but man, you talk about being like right on the verge of, or right on the start of of a verge and all. It just it was actually taking off, and all this. There's a lot of different stuff that was coming together. You had all these symposiums. You had these businesses that were starting. They were putting these price lists out. You had a couple more herpological societies that were starting. There was the Northern California Herp Society, and a few others. Something else that kind of really helped people visualize more and all that, because again, there was just black and white. Finally had a color. We had the Vivarium magazine that Philippe Devageli started. Once that hit, man, that's it. That just I swear to God, it was like an atom bomb. It just exploded. I mean, it really did, and it just caught on. I remember that first article was the albino Burmese that Bob Clark started, and his whole story was in there. And every month for X amount of years, and I'll let you look forward to what kind of new articles, what kind of new species were going to be featured in it. With all the different species that were coming in, a person really had to kind of pick and choose what they really wanted to do and kind of be more focused. I mean, it could, I'll be honest with you. I kind of got out of hand with keeping so many different types and all that. And, I just kind of hit the brakes and started really focusing just more on geckos, but not on any other lizard species. And I just, and then I think it was 97, that was the first, the first year I went to the first Breeders' Expo, but then in 97, I went back down there, and I gave a talk on Oeduras, which is a species of gecko from Australia. Because geckos were so popular, there's actually two societies on them. One was the IGS and the IGA. It was the International Gecko Association, and the other one, both groups would just fight with one another, which was stupid.
So I mean, Facebook before Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. It was just dumb, and it was the people that were running it. The people that subscribed to it, they were like, "Hey, yeah, look at this new article, and look who wrote it." I mean, we didn't care who was fighting. We just wanted to learn and see, color photos and all that stuff. But that came about, and like with all these different species that were popping up and all that. A person really, like I said, you had to hit the brakes and all that, because it could really get out of control. And I just, with the geckos and all that, I was pretty satisfied with that, and just kind of stuck with that. But but about in '98, that's when we started going back down to the Breeders' Expo. And we started vending down there in like 98 or 99, and we stuck with it all the way till 2015. But during that time, like around 2000 to, I'd say maybe to 2011, somewhere around there, I mean, the reptile hobby just exploded. I mean, I can remember there's in its heyday, the Breeders' Expo, that you had like 700 vendors down there. Every square inch that could be filled was filled. And I tell you what, breeders came from globally to that show.
Whoa.
You had all sorts of people from Europe, of course, America, only a few Canadians. You had people from South America. You had a lot of Asians, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and they were just coming there. And the amount of species, it was just unbelievable. When I was down in Florida a couple of weeks ago, I got a chance to visit with Ron St. Pierre, and the crazy thing was that it was after the fact, after we left. Ron and I didn't know each other for all those years, and we were in the same show, same show. And he's this big lizard guy and all that. And here I'm doing, all sorts of stuff. And it was after the fact, and we're like, "Where were you?" And he's a pretty cool guy. He's got a lot of knowledge and all that. I appreciate what he's done. But yeah, when you went down to that show, you would see species and all especially on Friday after everybody set up, Saturday morning. You never knew what you were going to see. One year, there was this guy by the name of Joe Lewis. He used to own Rare Earth.
Yeah.
And he had 21 or 22 baby Centralian blue-tongued skinks, the Taliqua multifasciata. And I just, I'm telling you, if I could have robbed a bank that day and bought all of them, but they're just incredible. And unfortunately, I had to go home without even one. But it was just, that type of show. One of the things was the banana pectinata. I will never forget, was it Kelly Paul? He had them. This bright yellow lizard way at the end of the show, the aisle and all that. And I kid you not, like probably over 1,000 people would come by his table to see that one lizard, lizard and all that. Because it was just, where else are you going to see a yellow lizard? Okay. It's just sitting out in the open on a branch and all that, just enjoying the attention. It was like a dog. It was great. But just seeing everything take place and all the different ideas that were starting to come about and all that, especially on an industry like this, if you want to call it that, it's, from the beginning all the way up to now and all that, or kind of in the beginning, it's been a trip. It really has.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I came in herpetoculture pretty recently, I guess, comparatively. I feel like each time we have a conversation with someone like yourself or Ron or Eric, or perhaps when we speak with Philippe, I just feel like, man, I'm just a baby. I feel like such a kid.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pick on you, but I'll call both of you guys embryos. But
well, and so would you mind telling us a little bit about the contents of sort of like the current collection? Because I know that you and I have a few animals in common. You and Roy have a few animals in common. So can you tell us a little bit about what your main focus is at the moment with your animals, like what species you're working with?
That's kind of that's kind of hard to say because diversity is a spice of life.
Yeah.
And
it's top 5, top 10 or something. Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, I could say this, that I really got a passion for Taliquas. And I can't. I've tried them all except for Adeliensis, and they're CITES animals. They're never coming in. Well, they're all CITES animals now, with the current legislation and that. But I mainly focused on the ones that can tolerate the environment that I live in, and it could be cool, it could be hot, it could be humid, or it could be dry and all that. and the alpine, the Taliqua niger latias and all that, they do very well here where I live. And I've been working, I'll be going into 23 years now working with those guys. And I can tell you this, every year, every month and all that, or almost every week and all that, I'm learning something new about those things.
Wow.
Wow.
You know, if somebody ever says that, oh, well, I've worked with this animal for 10 years or even 5 years or 2 years, I know everything about it. No, no, you're fooling yourself. You learn so much about those things, you know, what works, what doesn't. I've had success with them. I've had losses, and that's how you learn. But, you know, probably one of the bigger passions with Taliqos are the Westerns, the Ospitalis. Um, we, my wife and I started working with those back in like 2005, and they were some of the first ones like in the private sector. They're very, very hard to come by, and God, they were expensive, you know. And in 2008, we you know, produced like the first ones, and I to this day and all that, I can't describe the color of the babies when they're born. The coloration, it only lasts for about maybe 2-3 days, and then it's gone because, you know, their skin's getting used to oxygen and their environment. But the color, it's a type of olive that you will never see anywhere else, and when it's on this kind of chocolate cream background with these little white markings on it, I mean, you're speechless, you know. And then they look at you and they, you know, hiss at you and they flick this giant blue tongue out at you, and you're like, it's the whole package, you know.
It's the whole package.
I mean, it is. They're just beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, but I've been focusing on those, and a new project that's going to be it's up and coming. It'll be next year. Are the lowland blotches, the Victorians, and they haven't been bred in the U.S. for almost 30 years.
Whoa.
Wow.
The last person that bred them was Dick Bartlett down in Florida. I mean, if anybody else has, I haven't heard about it. I'm not saying that you know anybody hasn't, but you know, maybe there has. But I just, after talking with a lot of the skink people and all that, are people that keep like serious Taliqua collections and all that, I haven't heard anything else.
Yeah.
And but Dick, he kept them outside in Florida in this big giant pen. His animals, he had a little colony. He brought them, and every year he would just go out there and pick babies up. You know, they just did it naturally. I can't do that here. There's like 5 feet of snow out there season outside, but you know, I'm giving it a try. I was able to secure some really good animals, and I've raised them up, and they're up to maturity now. So that'll be hopefully taken off next year. But you know, the Taliquas, the Gurnias, they've always been you know, passion of mine. You know, the geckos, there's a huge plethora of them. Probably the two coolest ones, they're highly, highly vocal and all that I just kind of started working with the last couple of years, are the pseudo gecko smartadinus, the polio geckos from the Philippines. And what's interesting about them, they got green blood. Yeah,
Like the predator.
What?
Yep. It's kind of interesting with those guys, but they sound like a canary on steroids. The male will start calling the females, and it is incredibly loud. But it's very, the call is very soothing, which is interesting. You know, like a Rhacodactylus leachianus, it's a huge bark. And you know, most geckos are a deep bark and all that. These guys are not. It's like a high pitched canary. But then I picked up some about 2-3 years ago and all that, some Tinopus koki from a friend of mine, Joe Hupp, and all that. And the males are the ones that are crazy loud. And literally, it can be so loud that, you know, if they're downstairs, we can hear them all the way upstairs. And it's just this constant chirp, 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 you know. And there's been times like the start of breeding season, for me is basically about the end of January, because I cool my animals or hibernate them like November, December, beginning of January here. And once they start, the pseudogeckos and the Tanopus, they start talking to one another. It's awesome. I mean, it just, you know, there's, depending on where you live in the US and all that, there's a thing called winter blues. And, you know, working with the reptiles, especially breeding them in midwinter and all that, it helps with that. You know, and it's, you know, and hearing something like that, it just takes it to a different level. You know, but, you know, so there's like, you know, those are a couple new gecko projects. I finally jumped back into Lacerdas. Um, a friend of mine here in the U.S. and all that, he had some baby Teeman Curtis Standicus, and I finally, you know, got a little group going. It takes about 2.5 years to get those guys up to size maturity, so they still have another year. But the more exciting one was I just picked them up and all that this year. And I only know of one other person that has them in the U.S. is Lacerda Schreiberi, and they come from the southwestern part of Spain or Iberia, and excuse me, and they're probably one of the most gorgeous Lacerdans out there. I mean, they're just unbelievable. You know, I would definitely Google them and look at them. But the way that I found out about them was through Bert Langerwerf back in 1987 or 88. And he published an article on them, and I still have that article. And I just always told myself, you know, man, if I could just, you know, try and, you know, secure those things and just try and get them breeding and establishing U.S. herpetoculture, I mean, that would be awesome. So, but oh, you found it?
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So, but the thing is with Lacertids, because they come from, you know, various European countries and all that, they're all protected over there.
Wow.
And the only way that they're allowed for export is that there has to be a written documentation from the breeder, and there's a little bit of red tape and all that, you know, stating that, you know, these are truly captive hatched or born and all that, as opposed to wild caught, because they don't want the wild populations being decimated, because there are a lot of their habitats, you know, under threat, you know, which is understandable. So I, you know, for years I had asked, you know, a couple people over there, and nobody really responded or would, you know, lift a finger, and, you know, and that's fine. And then this year they popped up, and I'm like, oh my God, they're coming, you know, so they're here. And turned out to be 1.3. So hopefully that male does not die on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, but you know, like Roy and I, we've been talking about the South American species of lizard, the genus Polychrus. Yeah. And there's what is there, Roy? Like about 7, 8, maybe 9 different species.
I think 8 right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've had a lot of really good success with it's the Marmoratus.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, and they, you know, you'll see those guys pop in once in a while for, you know, as wild caught, and they come in pretty crappy condition. You know, they've got a lot of skin problems, and who knows what kind of parasites are running around in them, and the conditions that they were caught, kept, and shipped in. You know, by the time they get to, you know, the United States and all that, if there is you know, 50 of them were caught and shipped and all that, probably only 10 of them are going to survive. And out of that 10, you're only going to have maybe 4 or 5 that are decent, you know, that may have a chance and all that. So, you know, so kudos to you for, you know, getting those, you know, working with them, breeding them, and, you know, really getting, you know, true captive hatched animals and that. But the project that, you know, both of us have started kind of focusing on is the Polychrus peruvianus. And they're probably the, I don't know, I guess I mean, to elevate them, they're like the Cadillac of the Polychrus. Oh, yeah. When males are, you know, are highly stressed out and they're ticked off, they're just, it's like somebody stuck their tail into a light socket. They're just like the bright fluorescent neon green with black banding, this black crust and almost this white face with a, grayish colored, cap. And they're just beautiful animals and all that. But that's a stressed out animal. A normal animal and all that doesn't look anything like that. They're more, a relaxed animal. They're going to be, almost like a kind of like a paler green color. And the males, well, both males and females have, whitish colored face, but that's what you want to see. And I've noticed that the females and all that, they have a little bit, some like, I don't know, pastel to fluorescent blue triangular patterning on their backs and all that when they're, you could say in a very relaxed, happy mood, so to say. So, but that's, there's only one other person that we know of here in the US that has them. But other than that, like in Europe, there's a few people, but they mainly exist in like a small number of zoos over there. And there hasn't been a lot of success with those guys the last like 2 years with them over there. So that's something that we gotta, it'd be nice to get them established here in the U.S. Their habitat's under threat, like everything else. And I was told by a friend of mine over in Europe, over in Germany. He said that the main threat to their area is a dam construction now. So if that happens, that's it. There might be a couple satellite populations, but the main population will get wiped out. So that's it's terrible, but it's kind of the way it is. But other than that, there's of course you and I, Phil, we've collaborated like with Euromastics for a number of years and all that, and especially the Euromastic Tomasis. I mean, hey, it's a Tomasi.
Cool.
There's nothing else like it on Earth. So each animal is very unique. They have a little bit of variation in them, but I don't care if it's the green phase, the blue phase. I don't care if it's a fuchsia phase. They're just beautiful. And what's really interesting, and I just don't know what it is, but ever since I started working with them and the times that I brought them and hatched babies out, the thing that really is that I just noticed is that women love baby Tomasis. I'm not kidding. I'm not knocking ornates or or nothing like that. Yeah. But you can have a baby Tomasi and like an ornate. They'll always go for the Tomasis. They're just like
faces, the big eyes, and like they look like a little duck. They're just so they can sometimes seem so inept. Yeah, they're so silly. They're the strangest little lizard. You're right. They have the cuteness about them, the cuteness factor for a little Tomasi is next level. Yeah. Yeah. So Roy, I want to give you a little bit of room to hop in, because I know one thing we've been doing, Philip, is just kind of like Roy and I try to trade off a little bit in on each show. So maybe one show Roy will sort of take the lead, another show I'll kind of take the lead conversationally, just because we want to change it up as much as we can. And also each of us, Roy and I kind of tend to come at herpetoculture from similar but fairly distinct places. So and I can monopolize the conversation a lot. So I just want to make sure I give Roy some space to hop in and
for that. So, we'll Mr. Tremper and I for a while, we had an excellent conversation.
Sorry, Roy, there's some weird feedback going on with your mic.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. So let's see if we can fix that for just real quick. We have a guy who edits our shows now, so we can just have him clip this out. Yeah. No, it's still real bad. It's like we can hear you, but there's feedback and reverberation, so it actually uh makes it so the second half of what you say is totally inaudible. Sorry.
Is that any better?
Yes, this is better. Yeah, there's no feedback
Yeah.
now.
I'm just gonna turn off the mic for a sec,
Okay.
because the mic is being weird.
Okay.
My internet connection here is a little bit funky because I'm in my cabin and we're way out, so
Yeah.
that's probably part of it. But in any case, we spoke recently, Phil, about the Polychris, but we also got into just more background conversation. And one of the things that we touched on when we talked that I just was like, man, I wish that everyone was listening to this right now that keeps reptiles, just because I felt like it was such a salient insight on your part, was just around learning one's limits within herpetoculture. And I'm curious if you could speak to that a little bit. Just you spoke earlier about kind of diving in headlong and realizing that you're in over your head at certain points in the past. And yeah, so I'm just curious about if you could just speak to how you've managed to learn about that in your journey as a herpetoculturist.
Yeah, well, all our lives are all different, and we all have different, experiences and different situations in life. And, you know, mine's different compared to, Philip's or yours and all that. And, one of the things that we all have, but that we don't have control of is time. Uh, we can't go back. We just keep going forward. But when having a collection, whether it's one animal or you have a very diverse collection and all that, especially if you're doing it by yourself, or if you have maybe just, another person that's, helping you like somewhat and all that, we all have our limitations. We all have to have that boundary. And, you and I talked about this and all that, there's a line that we all have. And, again, it varies by individuals' circumstances. And if we cross over that line, how happy are you going to be? How satisfied are you going to be with what you're doing? And, I remember, a couple of years ago, Philip, you and I, we talked about this too. And I've seen a number of individuals and all that they've gone over that line, and they're miserable and they're not here anymore. They got burned out. I've gotten myself I've crossed over that line a couple times, and with the, help of my wife and all that, and, kind of kicking my butt, it's, you get some healthy reminders and all that, and you have to step back. You have to say, you know what, there's a stupid mosquito flying around here. But you have to realize, how far can I go to actually keep everything in its proper place, and how healthy, and keep everything in perspective. Keep this going up here, because you can get completely stressed out, and you'll just be miserable. You'll want to throw the towel in after a period of time. So more doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be happy. Being content with either this amount or even less and all that is better. And like every year, usually like about June, that's when the breeding season is like kind of really tailing off for me. I'll look at different projects that I've been working with, and some of them get the boot like in the fall. And it's not that I don't appreciate working with them, but if I'm spending X amount of time and nothing's happening, or I've been satisfied with that, or if my time or I'm having an extraordinary amount of time, with this particular project or projects and all that, maybe it's time just to cut back a little bit. And it's something that I can't tell anybody. You guys can't tell anybody what to do. We all have to look at our own circumstances, but we got to know where that line is, and you have to know where those boundaries are. You start seeing dirty cages all the time. You've crossed that line.
Yeah.
If you had a schedule for feeding and you skip, let's say 1 or 2, 3 feedings, you've crossed that line. If you find eggs, that have been dried up, or an animal is, its health is really going down. I mean, sometimes it's unavoidable and all that. You cross that line. You have to look at the big picture and all that, but you have to be realistic about yourself and about your collection. Again, whether it's one animal or if you got some people have a couple hundred animals and all that. If you got help and all that, it's a little bit different story. I mean, I mentioned Dr. Tim Title and all that before. Him and I were talking not too long ago, and he's got close to 2,500 or 3,000 geckos, and but he has a full-time employee, and he has at least 2 other like part-timers, something like that. And he's retired now, and he's down. He told me, he's like, Philip, I'm retired and I'm down in this crazy room like all the time. Yeah, for like 9-10 hours a day.
Yeah.
Taking care of and all that. So I couldn't do that. But I'm just saying is that he's got the resources to do that. And if you can do that, that's fine and great. But but if it's just individually and all that, most of us, I would say that most people that I know that, if they're just not exclusively ball python breeders, and, I'm not knocking them or whatever, but most people have like, 10 or 15 different projects going, or species and all that they're working with, or maybe a little bit less. So they make it work. They focus, they hone in on everything, and that's what you need to do. But but if you again go over that boundary and all that line and all that, the animals suffer and you just get stressed out, and a lot of times you just throw the towel in.
I can relate to this. Is highly relatable for me because I'm sort of just getting to the point where the last couple of years where I'm noticing that there's a ceiling, like to what I can do just by myself as the only guy taking care of everything here. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a local kid who helps me out once in a while over the summers. Him and his father used to be my jujitsu students. And so he's a great kid. I trust him, and I pay him to come help me out every now and again, right in the middle of the busy season. But it's just for the summer when he's not in school, and he's mostly just picking up poop, But but also, so it's not just cage cleaning, it's not just feeding, but it's the way that care load balloons in the busy season and then returns, but it never goes quite back to as small as it was, because you're usually building, you have lights and supplies as like a major concern when you're dealing with you get to a certain number of animals, and lights go out all the time. Animals need veterinary care from time to time. Things happen in your facility that you have to take care of and that you're not always in control of. And there really is like an upper limit for what one person can manage. And as you said, Phil, that's going to be different from person to person, but I just wanted to note that I feel like I'm hitting right up against that ceiling of sort of like, okay, if I don't bring in help, which I don't know if I ever want to do, that's not really my personality. And that's just a scale that I don't know if I ever really want to work with personally. But I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I'm just saying I'm getting closer to what that ceiling looks like, because it's, I can see it right in the distance that if I get just a little bit too much bigger, there's no way I'll be able to manage everything. It's just never going to happen. I don't have the bandwidth for it. I don't have the energy for it. I don't have the time for it.
Yeah, so that brings the topic up and all that. You want to keep breeding your stock, but where do you draw the line and say I'm not going to breed it? I don't want to say that we're going to start throwing eggs away or anything, but we just don't eat those animals and all that. So it's a decision that we all have to make. I mean, I had to make that this year, with certain Australian species geckos that I'm working with, because they all went CITES now and all that, and so that limits them to just being in what's in the United States is here. And I just so that that's it. I don't need to breed as many of them as I want.
Right.
I'm still working with the ones that I really like, but it's in low numbers now.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a strange, and so for me, I know I've mentioned this to you, Phil, and to Roy peripherally, that I've been making adjustments in terms of my own projects and like narrowing the scope of species that I'm working with so I can broaden my focus on those fewer select numbers, and I mean, it's fun in some ways, but I relate, Philip, when you were talking earlier about seeing something new and exciting and you want to, I'm just going to have to try this, like I'll see Roy or you or Armin post a picture of those Peruvianas and I'm like, I could set up a nice 5-foot enclosure here in the closet at the apartment. No one would no big deal at all, and I'm like, no, stop. You just need to stop, slow down. There'll be time for more stuff in the future. You don't have to do everything right now. And then also I just don't know if I could ever be the person who has a staff. I just don't, because then I don't want to ever lose contact with my animals. It's not just it's not really, the business isn't the focus. The focus is the practice of herpetoculture. That's what's most interesting to me. That's what's most compelling to me. It's just that it is a happy side effect that I can support myself with it for now. But like, even that isn't something that's designed to sustain me forever, but I will always be practicing herpetoculture. It doesn't matter what else I'm doing. That's always going to be something I'm doing. It's really just a matter of scale and volume. It's like, am I going to crank the volume up or crank it down for a little while? And it's interesting. I feel like there's like this really common metric for success, or not metric for success. I mean, I guess some people use it that way, but I guess what I'm trying to say more succinctly is that so many people have these shorter term views through the way they're thinking about their projects. So, they breed something once, maybe they breed something twice, and then they move on and they go on to the next thing. And as you were mentioning, Phil, the second as soon as you start getting out across the line of having bred something and worked with the same species for 10, 15, 20 plus years, it's completely different. You're always learning something new. And that's really, I don't know. I feel like I've actually, I trailed off here. I got a little tangential. Sorry, but
can I jump in there?
Yeah.
That kind of relates, that dovetails into something that I was curious about asking Phil too, was just, I mean, you're speaking to kind of having this assessment moment. Okay, what's going to stay and what's going to go, and what's going to come in. And I'm curious, like I feel like there's a question in there that ties into like what are your goals personally, like as a herpetoculturist, and then also like what are your personal metrics for success? Because I feel like people, there's sometimes a conflict in herpetoculture that I see where people just perceive success totally differently. Like success for one person is like just getting started for another. And so I'm curious just how you orient to that in your practice.
As far as like a goal, I'm not trying to be sounding selfish here and all that, but I want to work with it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I want to work with, I would love to work with every lizard species and that I could get my hands on and just learn. That's what it's about. It's learning about that animal and breeding it and hatching out or having, a litter born. It just, I mean, it's about learning. That's my goal. I mean, it's been a privilege over the years to work with a lot of various species and all that, a lot of different geckos and all that. You'll never see them in captivity anymore. So I mean, it's one of those things that you for the moment and all that you should appreciate it. Whatever you're working with, because tomorrow you may not have it. And that's despite, let's say you or several other people trying to, get it established in this herpetoculture, world that we live in. Good majority of projects and all that, they don't last
Yeah.
because of bloodlines or whatever it may be and all that. They just don't last. It's, you could say it's survival of the fittest. There's only, when you really look at it as a whole and all that, there's only so many species and all that have really established themselves, and that will continue to do that.
Yeah, we've definitely lost more. I mean, in terms, the amount of species that have been imported but disappeared from presence here is way longer than the list that are, and the further you go back, the shorter that list becomes in terms of animals available then compared to now.
But as far as like personal metrics and all that, one of the things that I guess that I really firmly believe in is just being myself. And what I mean is by not following the crowd, or if there's like a new wave or the next thing and all that. There's one particular newer gecko that's come on board, and I'm not even going to say it because I know I'll probably get my butt kicked by some there by a particular
The
group.
wise man right here.
Yeah, but I don't see anything in it, and so I do my own thing, and I'm not out to be to work with a certain project just to please other people and all that. I have my own interest, and I stick with that. And you got to be true to yourself, and it's whatever you have that personal interest and all that. Make that your goal. But jump in. It may be deeper than you thought and all that, but you're never going to know unless you try. And yeah, you may get criticism for it, but just blow it off. That's what you do. And if you get mad, go out in the woods and punch a tree. Because I mean, otherwise you're going to go to jail. So yeah, but the thing is that you got to try and be positive with as well too, with yourself, with your spouse, or girlfriend, fiance. You have to be, and the people around you. I mean, you're going to have a lot of bad days. You're going to have a lot of good days. Those good days, share it. I mean, there's been plenty of times that I've had either baby skink born or a particular gecko born, lizard, and showed it to my kids, and I mean, my son can care less, but my daughter, she'll look at it for about 2 seconds and then move on, but and that's fine. That's fine. But as far as being positive and all that, it's share it. It can be addictive. It's only going to benefit the other person, whether they appreciate it or not. I guess that's why like as herpetoculturists and all that, we can that positive, when things go the right way or even the wrong way and all that, we could share it with one another because we were on the same level. We're outside that bubble.
Yeah,
we understand each other. I can go to work and I can explain this to the guys that I work with, and it's like over their head. They
Right.
don't. And I don't expect them to, and that's why, for me personally, I don't talk about that, like subjects like this and all that, only with other people like, such as you two gentlemen. So when you have good stuff happen and all that, you need to share it, because it's going to open your world up more, but it's going to open somebody else's world up even more.
Mm.
I mean, it really is, because now they're learning. That's what it is. It's all about learning. So it's, so don't keep stuff to yourself all the time. It ain't good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, very well said indeed. And I find it pretty interesting how you mentioned, well, getting a little bit of discouragement when you were younger, because I had that as well. I've mentioned this before in a couple of the shows we've done, but my even though my mother and father generally were supportive of me having reptiles, they didn't mind that I kept them. I remember distinct conversations with my dad where he was like, this isn't going anywhere. Come on, why would you bother with this? And then more than one girlfriend who also did, previously a fiance now, but previously girlfriends who didn't, just saw what I was doing and they're like, well, this is cool and all, but like, when are you going to get a real job? Like, no, this is it, I'm going to do this for a long time. And then also I relate very much to the dichotomy of friend groups. This other thing I do is Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I go there and I talk to them about reptiles, and they just make jokes about me being lizard king and all this other stuff. They're like, oh, hey, yeah, this, lizards, this guy, he's an iguana, haha. But then I, go into other circles and I tell them I wrestle around with guys and try to choke them unconscious. And they're like, what do? You do what now? So the things you're interested in can be really diverse and really bizarre.
Into a pretzel, it usually works.
Yeah, right, totally. Yeah. They'll be quiet eventually. That's great. So I had a couple, let's see. I know I had another question here I wanted to ask you, Philip. And oh no, I asked you asked all the good questions, Roy. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I've got a whole bunch more, man.
Oh yeah, you go. Yeah.
Well, okay, so here's one thing. I mean, you've described, so much change in herpetoculture in the span of time that you've been a part of it. And I could hear in it there's a little bit of nostalgia for times past in that. But I'm also curious, like, moving forward, what would you like to see more of? What do you, if you could instill one thing in the hobby moving forward, what would you want to see more of?
Well, I can tell you this, that a lot of businesses, like, across the board, there are trends and all that. There's highs and lows. It's like a big roller coaster. And herpetoculture is the same way. I've seen these big highs, I've seen these big lows and all that. And right now, we had our low. We had our back in, with COVID 2020. And we talked about this, Philip. We hit the reset button. And I just personally, I actually welcomed that, because it was kind of getting 2019, 18 was getting really saturated. And there's some things that were happening that I just did not agree with. And I don't really get on Facebook and jump in these groups and all that, because you're not going to win. And plus, I think it's a waste of my personal time. So, so I've been pretty quiet about some of those things. But in 2020, with that reset button and that low, we've changed. I mean, we're changed. People as a whole and all that. I don't care if you're keeping reptiles or not or whatever, or you're in herpetoculture. Everybody's changed, and some people they've found different avenues and all that to release their frustration, and their anger, whatever it may be. But you can call it. I guess when you start thinking about chaos, it's some people think of it being a bad thing, and it's actually not, because what happens at the end of chaos? Change. Change takes place and all that. Does that change for the good or is it for the bad and all that? It's all from your perspective and all that. So like an example and all that, hurricane comes through. Chaos. I mean, absolute chaos. Well, what did it just do? It just changed the environment and all that, to a certain degree and all that. Usually, life renews itself. And that's kind of what I'm starting to see, especially in the last, let's say maybe the last close to 18 months and all that. I'm starting to see like a, little bit of an absolute change and all that, I would say. And, I think that you're starting to see more serious breeders now. You still have people doing it for the novelty of it, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, because really they're here today and gone tomorrow. But I think that there's a good handful of people out there that are, they're in it for the long haul. And those are the people that I really like to focus on, because those are the ones that are going to, bring about knowledge. And, and that's what I don't know, that's what, attracts me. But how is that knowledge going to come about? And, with the advent of the internet and all these different, social media outlets and all that, and I'm not talking about TikTok or whatever, that's for purposes only, stuff like that. But even you look at Instagram and all that, there's people that they're putting out a little bit more serious, items out there that they've had success in, and it's much appreciated, because now, and it's not that they're bragging or nothing like that. They're happy, they're proud to of their success, and they should be. They work their butts off, for something like that. And I'm not saying they need a parade or nothing like that, but a high five or whatever, or something like that. But now you can talk, you can get in touch with that person, and just share information and all that. And now and there's no issues. There's no stupid groups and all that where people are fighting with one another. But the thing that I like is, and I'm going to throw this on you two guys right now and all that. So you better understand this right now, what I'm about to say to you two. You got a good thing going here. And I look at you guys and all that. I've seen some things at Catalyst, with this hobby and all that. And, I talked about a couple of them, like the vivarium, some of the, herp symposiums and all that. Thing that the way people are talking and learning, are these podcasts. I mean, a couple of years ago, who knew what a podcast was? I had no idea what they were. I didn't care about them or anything like that. But you have all these different ones out there and all that. And some of them are, I watched one and all that. I had to turn it off. I was disgusted at it, But I look at your guys's Project Herpetoculture. You guys got a good thing going and all that. And I kind of feel that your format and the way that it's respectable, it's not for, like I said, entertainment purposes only. It's to learn about, it's all about learning. This is gonna, I really feel this is gonna take off. So you guys
Awesome.
got a big burden on your shoulders right now. So I mean, it's going to be cool to see where this takes off, because I'm going to tell you right now, I really feel that this one differentiates from all the other ones that I've seen out there.
Oh man, thank you.
Thanks for that, Phil. Yeah, wow.
I mean, we both feel like we've been so fortunate within herpetoculture, just in terms of the people that we've been able to meet, the friendships we've been able to form, the examples we've found within this space, and the community of people that we've found within this space. All of that stuff, we're just so grateful for it. You know, we're so lucky, so damn lucky. And it's through talking with other people such as yourself, Phil, and everyone else we've spoken to, and we have lots of other people who we're slated to speak with, who are a mixture of sort of legendary type figures within the community, and people who are keeping like what Connor Jones, he said he had, his episode came out today, and he says he's got like 6 reptiles. You know, that's like and when people are so focused on the numbers and about how, you know, it's got to be the biggest this and the most amazing that, and it's all about clickbait, and Connor over here is like just destroying in a great like just killing it in terms of the quality of keeping that he's doing, and the methodologies he's using, and the example he's setting for the future, you know, and being able to have that mixture of people like him, and then folks such as yourself, Philip. I mean, it really just feels like a way of recording the thing that we're just as grateful as we could be. I mean, we're just so grateful for all of it. I mean, that really feels like the value in and of itself, is just getting to have conversations with people like you, because if it wasn't for the work that folks like yourself and others have done, we wouldn't be able to do this. I mean, we really would not.
Yeah, ditto. Ditto to all that. You know, I think that this is just, it's I've spoken about this a lot, but I just feel like there's in any kind of craft, there comes a point where I think a person who spends enough time with it becomes indebted to the craft itself, you know, and wants to actually contribute something to it. And I really feel that about herpetoculture, you know, like I don't know, I have no idea what my life would look like without it, and feel so indebted to it. So this is hopefully one way that we can just celebrate it, you know, celebrate it and be total geeks and just talk about talk about these creatures that we're so enamored with.
Yeah.
What could be better?
That's right. Yeah.
You know, the nice thing about this is that, you know, compared to the past, all you had was just reading material, and you know, and it was a phone call or a letter and all that. But now, you know, we can do this. You know, we can talk to one another live, and you know, it'd be great if we're all face to face and all that. But you know, it's not plausible. So you know, so this is like the next step, and you know, but it's you know, I think there's going to be, you know, some that are going to be weeded out because maybe your motives or whatever it may be are just, you know, not what it's really focused about, you know, and you know, so yeah, this is actually the right direction.
Well, and hopefully, you know, maybe in a few years' time, when we've been doing this for a little bit longer, and maybe we have a little more momentum behind us, we'll be able to actually do that. We'll meet at Tinley one year, and we'll sit down and have a big conversation, the 3 of us in person over, you know, and we can record it for real, you know, be a little even more nerdy.
Maybe so.
Yeah. Roy, do you have anything else before we sort of go with that last question?
I mean, I feel like endlessly yes to that. And I think that I feel like we're at a good point where we can start, moving toward that, and
Sure.
let's do it.
Okay. All right. So Phil, it's been so excellent to speak with you. Hopefully we can do more of these in the future. Because you have such a wealth of knowledge about the history of herpetoculture in the States, and you have such a breadth of experience with so many different animals. It's really, we're very, very grateful for your time. We really are. But so we have this one question that we like to ask every guest to sort of close the show with, and take it as open-ended or closed narrowly as you'd like. But the question is, why herpetoculture? And that can be, and again, it can be quite broad as like, why, what's the value? What does herpetoculture contribute to society? Or it can be as narrow as like, why for you, and like, why should other people practice it? I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I'll sum it up in one little tiny sentence, and I'll let, because I was thinking about this, and I've had this conversation with a couple people over the years, and I'll let, it's a disease. It is.
Oh man,
It's a disease.
that's the best answer so far. That is the
I mean,
best answer. It's like we all have,
Probably the most accurate one.
we all have a
guess
mental
what?
illness.
There's no cure.
No cure. Dude. That's the
We're not
best
getting a
one.
shot. We're not getting a booster shot. We're not getting a pill. So it's a disease, and all that. We, for whatever reason, all of us, including myself, and all that, we're doing this. I really think that, again, that we appreciate life, and we want to learn about it. And the avenue that we've gone down has to do with reptiles and amphibians. Somebody's got to. So why can't it just be us? And I think that the more that we get focused, the more we appreciate it, because now we're exploring, and it's, different territories. I mean, to quote Captain Kirk and all that, space, the final frontier, herpetoculture, here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only been doing this really for the last 45, 50 years. When you think about it, that's a real small window. I mean, you've had your naturalists, years ago, that were explorers, and but they were, finding new species and all that. They weren't breeding them. They didn't even know how. And it probably wasn't even on their mind. But now we know what we're doing. We're taking it to like the next level. And, there are different avenues with it. Not just keeping them. Some people have made it into a small business. Nothing wrong with that, as long as it's, kept in perspective, and, you treat people with respect and everything. But, but at the end of the day, it's just, really appreciating what's out there and what interests us personally. It's, it maybe one species or a multiple species and all that. As far as like, contributing to, human society and all that, I still think there's, a lot of misconceptions, and there's people that are prejudiced or discriminate, because they don't understand. And that's usually how it works with, people. They just have this innate equality and all that, what they don't understand, they're against it, and so, I'm going to run that snake over in the road. I'm going to, throw a rock on it or something like that. I'm going to run that turtle over or something like that. No, we're not. We don't do that. But I can't. I'd say, is there an answer for that? I mean, there's education, and you can only do so much. You're not going to change everybody. But I just I kind of feel that we can contribute as much as we can and all that, to maybe some of those changes and all that. But there's still a lot to learn. And unfortunately, some areas and all that, this world and all that's, it's getting crazier, and we're losing habitat, we're losing species and all that, so, there's solutions and all that, but, it's going to be in the future and all that. So, but we, but like right now with us, personally and all that, I just really feel that, like I was saying, there's those highs and lows, and we're actually climbing right now. And, that's where you got to be, contribute to that climb. You ever, you guys, did you ever, when you were kids and all that, play that game Barrel of Monkeys?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They all interconnect with one another. That's what we got to
Yeah.
do, is connect with one another and pull each other along up that hill.
Mm.
I mean, that's what you got to do. Got to be positive about it.
Yeah. That's beautifully said.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an excellent place to wrap this up, because that's such a positive note, and I think that's something that everybody could take away something from. I think that's great.
Agreed.
Phil, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate it a lot. It's really great to be able to know you as a person and be able to have awesome conversations with you like this one. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Here, let me stop.
Until next time.
Yeah. Next time. Here, let me stop the recording.